Welcome everybody. Danny here from Skillshare, and I'm so excited to be joined here by Marie-Noëlle Wurm, all the way out in France. How you doing, Marie-Noëlle?
Really good. I'm really happy to be here and excited to do this.
Yes, we are so excited for you to share all you've learned about Procreate Dreams too. And to everyone out there, we're so happy to have you here and grateful that you could make it today for this session. So today you are here for Find Your Animation Style in Procreate Dreams with Marie-Noëlle Wurm, an amazing illustrator, analog visual artist. I've followed your work for so long, and I'm just so excited to see how you're translating it into the Procreate Dreams app um, and what to expect in today's session. So Marie-Noëlle is going to do a little bit of introduction and lay of the land and Procreate Dreams. And she's going to cover things like sketching and animating using all three animation modes in Procreate Dreams, as well as integrating your personal style and inspiration into your work. And Marie-Noëlle, I know personally from having seen a lot of your incredible work, that you're coming at this from an illustration angle, not like a full-on freelance animator. So for anyone out there who is more of an illustrator working in still images, you're going to learn a lot. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely an artist and illustrator, first and foremost, and then I've brought animation as a tool into my workflow. So that's kind of what I hope to talk about today.
So yes, with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm just so happy to be here and really excited to dive into, the Procreate Dreams app, which has been so fun for me to dive into these past few months. So I'm an artist and illustrator, also a top teacher on Skillshare. And today I wanted also us to talk about finding your animation style, and just give you a few thoughts on that subject before we dive into the project. So when we think of finding our animation style, there are really two poles in my mind. And one of them, the first one, is the visual identity of the animation that you're going to be creating. What does it look like? What illustration style are you going to be using to make that come to life in animation form? And then the second part is the actual animation part, and I'll get into that a little bit. But so just to start us off on this idea of visual identity, I'm going to show you some of my work that I've done and kind of talk you through at least the things that I think about when I think of style. So I'm going to dive into Procreate, where I have a few of my illustrations that I'm going to kind of flip through. But one of the things that I want you to know is that, so Danny said it already, I am an analog illustrator, an artist first and foremost. I love everything that's like gouache, watercolor, colored pencils, pastels. But since 2019, I've really been integrating Procreate most of all into my workflow as another tool that I also really love. And as I've integrated the digital into my workflow, I've tried to kind of keep the things that I love about the analog into the digital. So the image on the left is made in Procreate, and then the two on the right were made with soft pastels and analog materials. So you can really kind of see that there's no real, there's a lot of differences, but that's what I think is really fun with Procreate and with Procreate Dreams, is that I can bring in that sort of analog gritty feel that I love into my work. But the thing that I want you to notice the most, I think, is the fact that as I flow through these, they're all a very different style. Also, because of the mediums that I'm using, there's a different goal for each one of these images. And as we talk about style, that's really important. What I find fascinating is this connection between what it is that I'm drawing and how it is that I'm representing it. How is it that I'm drawing that? And the way that I make those choices is going to maybe enhance or add to the message that my drawing or illustration is conveying. And so I really want you to not be afraid to explore many different ways of expressing yourself and expressing your ideas, and to not feel boxed in by a single style, and rather to really lead with a spirit of inquiry and exploration. What is it that you are interested in? What is it that, what colors, what materials, what textures, what compositions, and what subject matters? So it's really, this is something that's constantly in flux in our life. It's constantly evolving. And so starting to build that habit of asking yourself, what is it that speaks to me and to my personal creativity, is really, really essential as you move forward in illustration and also in your animation. So that being said, as we move into Procreate Dreams, which I'm going to open up here, and I'll show you how I've done it, but you're going to maybe find other discoveries, find other ways of working, and that's what's really fun and interesting as well. So I'll show you this one, which is an illustration that I made and that I then turned into an animation, and there's some sound, so hopefully you'll hear that. So you can see it's a very, I would call this more of like a micro story. There's not like a huge story unfolding, but there is a sense of place, there's a sense of character. And I just wanted to have fun coming up with an idea that I found exciting, that I thought was kind of cute and kind of funny. And hopefully that transmits itself. And that's what is really essential as you move into animation, is asking yourself, what is it that speaks to you? What do I want to explore in my animations when I do so? I'm going to show you one more. This one also has sound, but I'm going to turn it off so I can keep chatting to you. And because I'm an artist and illustrator first and foremost, my way into animation is through the illustration first. Oh wait, you can hear the sound, can't you? Through the illustration first, and then I build the animation usually second. There's a bullet, I screwed that up right at the end, but and you can start off in that way with illustrations or drawings that you've already created, but you can also work in other ways. You can start with a sketch. You can start with a story, and then think of what it is that you're going to animate, and then build the visual identity of that animation as a second step. So I also want you to just be aware that there's this variation within the process that is something to explore, and that you can try different methods of approaching the animation process in order to really find what works for you. Then there are two other, I guess, themes that I would think are important when we're talking about animation style. And one of them is the animation style specifically. So for example, you can go from animation styles that are very smooth and complex, very intricate, like Disney style animations where everything really flows very beautifully. And you can also have animation styles where you have a lot of exaggeration, and then you can also have animations where things are very hand-drawn, very frame by frame, and the animation itself has this sort of glitchiness, a texture to it that the smooth types of animation maybe don't have as much. And all of those different types of animation have their place, and again, will either contribute, enhance your message, or contrast it. And so it's also interesting to play within those realms. And then finally, subject matter. So what it is that we choose to animate is going to have a huge impact in our artistic journey. And the two animations that I showed you at first, I would call those kind of like micro stories. And so they're more on the story end of the spectrum. And of course, you can have full-fledged feature animations that are even more elaborate stories, and that's also really fun. But you can also do animations that are more of a contemplative, poetic nature. That's something that I chose to do with this one. Poetry and contemplation is something that I'm very drawn to, and so that's going to show up in my animation. And that being said, you could even go more abstract and more conceptual. If you know anything about motion design, you know, sometimes it's about shapes and lines and colors in movement. And it can be about that. And there's a lot of richness and beauty that can be found within that as well. So that's kind of the idea that I want us to keep in mind as we move into our project. The project is going to be a follow along. So, you know, the subject matter is kind of decided for you. The process is also decided for you. But I want you to still take this opportunity to find ways to personalize it. And so to start building this dialogue with your personal creativity. So your colors might look very different from my colors. You know, I might choose a blue and you'll choose, you know, a pale green. I don't know. These are the kinds of ways that we start practicing that connection to the self and the connection to our creativity, and that we allow ourselves to lead with that spirit of inquisitiveness and self-inquiry that I think is really essential when you're trying to figure out what you want to do. All right, so let's start in on the project. Right now we're in the theater where all the different projects live, and we're going to create a new one from scratch. So I'm going to ask you to click this little plus on the top right. And obviously, if you've used Procreate Dreams a little bit, then you know that you're faced with a lot of different options here for size. And we're going to just work with the regular 4K screen size. I want you to click on the three little dots on the top right. And here is where we can choose the number of frames per second and the duration. So this is where you already have that kind of choice that I was telling you about, you know, something that looks a little bit more hand-drawn frame by frame. That's often more of like a 12 frames per second. We're going to choose a Cinema 24 frames per second. And that is a little bit smoother, but please play around with that when you have the chance after this class or whenever, because it's very fun to try the different types. The duration, we're going to start out with 30 seconds. So you can go ahead and pick 30 seconds. Once you're done with that, we are going to click on empty. And just one note for people who don't know Procreate Dreams yet, there is no real difference between these two. The only difference is that when you click on draw, then you can immediately start drawing, but it's not like you're actually choosing between like something that you can't get if you click on empty. We're going to start with empty so that it's easier for everyone to start off in the same way. So here we have our stage, which is where you can see what it is that you're animating, and your timeline at the bottom that is now currently empty. We are going to click on this little plus sign on the right, and you can see that you can add tons of stuff: track, photos, video, text files. And if you add photos, video, text, or files, it's going to automatically create a track for you. And so tracks are really the building block of our animation. So we're going to go ahead and click on one of these, and you'll see the playhead that has appeared with a sort of gray kind of track. And the playhead is something that you can move with your pencil. And you have the time that kind of shows you the duration of your animation. We're going to start off by drawing a background. And so I'm going to actually show you two ways to do that. So I'm going to put my playhead right at the start. And I'm going to click this little squiggly line, which means that I want to draw, which is pretty self-explanatory, and it's a good icon for that. I'm going to choose a background that's going to be light pink, but again, personalize this. This is already one of the instances in which you can choose how to make this a little bit more yours. So I'm going to click on the top right here to pick my color. I pick my color. Once I'm done and I see that my color is in there, I can simply long hold it and drag it and drop it. So just like in Procreate, if you're familiar with the color drop in Procreate, that's one way that you can do it. And what you'll see is that there's a tiny little track here that got tiny little frame that got created here when I pulled my color. So what I would do is I would then long hold on that and click on fill duration. And this allows me, if I zoom out with 2 fingers or quick zoom out to see the entire project, I can see that it's filled the entirety of my animation. However, I'm going to show you a second way to do this background. So we're going to tap with 2 fingers to undo once and twice. Okay, so now I have no keyframe, no frame, sorry. It's empty again. I'm going to now click on this little, it's like a time stamp kind of. And in that, you're going to see stage options. It has stuff about onion skins that we're going to get into later, but then at the bottom, it also says background color. So we're going to click that. And here we can also choose our background color in another way. You can also make it transparent, but right now we're going to have a color in the background. And you can see it's not on any sort of track. It's just on its own within the project as the background, and I can change that at any moment. However, I do want to do some drawing, and so I'm going to actually draw a sun or a moon, and I'm going to make mine a sun. I'm going to make it yellow, but you could make a green sun if you wanted. That could also be really fun, or a blue sun, or something like that. So I'm going to go into my colors here again, and I'm going to pick my color for the sun. And of course, you want to make sure that you're in the drawing mode right over here with the squiggly line activated. Here I want to show you how you can gain a little bit more space when you're drawing, because it can sometimes feel a little constrained when you're just working with half of the screen. So you can see underneath the stage, there's this little horizontal line, and I'm going to either push it down or pull it up. I can do it with my pencil or with my finger. And then that brings me into a full screen view with a little flip book, which is really useful for when we want to do frame by frame drawing. And we'll get into that a little bit later. For now, I just want you to draw a sun. And my brush is a little bit big, so I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. You can actually pick your brush here by clicking on the brush. There are so many different options. Here's another one of those opportunities where you can personalize it and you can choose a different brush than the one that I'm using. You can use the same as well if you prefer that. I'm using the Inca brush. So I'm going to go in and just make my sun. And I like there to be a little bit of texture, but you could fill the whole thing in as well. That's fine. All right. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to click on Done. I'm going to long hold on my track and click on Fill Duration so that my sun takes up the whole space. But now I want to add another element. So I'm going to yet again click this plus, and I'm going to add a track. I'm going to activate the drawing mode again, And I'm going to go back into my full screen mode by dragging up my that little horizontal line. This time, what I want us to make is a little ghost, because I think ghosts are very fun. So I'm going to use a color that it looks like white, but it has a slight bluish tinge. Again, it doesn't need to be a white ghost. It can be a different color. So once I have that, I'm going to just draw a little ghost over here in the kind of bottom left corner. And, you know, ghosts come in all sorts of shapes that are kind of roundish, circular, amorphous blobs. So I really encourage you to just have fun with creating a shape that seems fun for you. You could also color drop here. Since I'm a sucker for drawing and texture, I like to just do it by hand. And I'm gonna leave just a little bit of texture there because I think that's fun. And of course we need little eyes for our character, and you could just draw them in, but I'm actually going to use the eraser as a drawing tool here. That just feels fitting for my little ghost. So when you click on the eraser, you can also select the type of brush that your eraser is. And I think I'm gonna go with maybe more of a sketching brush. The 6B pencil I quite like. So I'm gonna use that one as my brush. And here again is another opportunity for personalization. I'm making eyes that are kind of oval, but you can make yours circular, you can make them rectangular, you can put them close together, far apart, vary the size. I think that's going to be a little fun. And I'm also going to just do a bit of a pointy head. All right. Once we're done with that, I want us to click on done. And now we can come back to our main animation. I'm going to talk to you here about the importance of organizing your tracks, because even though as artists and creatives we have a tendency to shy away from organization, it's really, really important, and it will save you a lot of headaches down the line. So color coding your tracks, I find, is really, really helpful in order to do that. So what I want to do is I'm going to long hold on my sun, and I'm going to click on highlight. And the way I like to do it is to pick a color that's similar to the item that is on the track. So I'm going to make that one yellow. And then I'm going to make my ghost white or gray. And you might not see the importance of that right now because I don't have many tracks, but as soon as you have, you know, a few tracks, and it can very quickly become a lot of tracks, it'll be very, very useful to have this. All right, third thing, we're going to add one more element. So I'm going to click this plus again, I'm going to click track, and I'm going to enter drawing mode. Come back into this flip book. And to make sure that you're at the beginning of your, the playhead is all the way to the left, you can also use the flip book and just be like, oh yeah, okay, I can't go any further, so I'm at the beginning of my animation. We're going to make a little watering can. So I'm gonna make mine a slightly orangish color. And I think everyone pretty much knows what a watering can looks like. So it kind of has a square, maybe rectangular shape. You'll have a handle on the side or on the top. So again, these are all opportunities for you to personalize it. Where are you going to put your handle? What shape are you going to make? And then it's going to have a spout. That one I think is a bit big, so I'm going to just reduce the size of that a little. And I just want to give it a little bit more depth here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on these two little squares at the top right, and that brings me into my drawing layers, which is not the same thing as my tracks on my timeline. This is really just like Procreate. If you know Procreate, it's just a layer that you're going to have on this drawing. And so I'm going to long hold the new layer and activate clipping mask on that because I want to add a little bit of shadow. So I'm going to go for a darker color, something more brown. And I'm just going to add a little bit of this kind of shadow color at the base, maybe. And then at the bottom of things. Oop. Somehow I switched to my brush, to my eraser. But I think the contrast is a little too strong here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to re-click those drawing layers, the two little squares, and I'm going to click on the N here on this layer that I just made. And I'm going to reduce the opacity of this layer to something that I like. I think that's not too bad. All right. I am going to long hold my, I'm going to zoom in a little bit because sometimes it can activate something else. So I just want to make sure the whole frame is activated. I'm going to long hold on it and then click fill duration. I'm also going to long hold, highlight, and make it orange, just so that we're all good. I haven't done that with the ghost, you'll have noticed. And that's okay. It's not really necessary right now, but I just wanted to have it set up for the other two. Something else I just wanted to mention is that my track got created in between the sun and the ghost. And that's actually good because I want my ghost to be in front of my watering can. But if it just so happens that your track got built on top of the ghost, then it's good to hold it and move it so that it's underneath the ghost, just to make sure. All right, so now we're going to have a little bit of fun with our ghost, and I'm going to be able to introduce you to one of my favorite types of animation modes in Procreate Dreams, which I'm sure you've heard about and which I think is really unique and very powerful, and that is the perform mode. So the perform mode, the way that you activate it is by clicking on this circle over here. What happens is that you see on the top left a little, it's written ready, and then there's a little blinking red light as though you're in front of a camera action. That's kind of the idea here. And whatever layer it is that you've selected, there's going to be a little bounding box that appears around the element that you're going to be animating, that you're going to be performing. You want to make your app, you want to place your Apple Pencil a little bit further away from the bounding box because sometimes it'll get confused with scaling. But the important thing is to know that the movement of your Apple Pencil is going to be translated into the movement of your element that you're animating. And you can see here that it's getting recorded and that my little ghost and my little movement is also getting recorded at the same time. And this can be really fun. You know, if you have a ghost, a little bird or a bee or a leaf, you know, there are a lot of different ways that you can use this. As soon as I lift my Apple Pencil, it stops. You've noticed that. And you've also noticed maybe that there's this new track that appeared underneath, and that's where all these automatic keyframes have been created as you've been moving your Apple Pencil. Here's something else that's really important. You can modify the motion filtering. And so if your movement is too shaky or your hands shake a little bit, you might want to increase the motion filtering so that your movement is a little smoother, and that can definitely help. But that's not what we're going to do right now with our ghost. So I'm going to come out of there and I'm going to tap with 2 fingers to undo. And I'm going to bring my playhead all the way back to the beginning. Just as a quick little aside, if you want to redo, you tap with 3 fingers, which is the same thing as in Procreate. And I only learned about this like maybe 4 months ago, which is embarrassing considering I've used Procreate for so long, but it's very useful. We are going to use the perform mode with our little ghost, but in a slightly different way. So I want to make sure that we have this little circle activated, and we're going to click on the playhead, just a short click, and you get this little menu with action, move, filter, edit. We are going to go into move and warp. And what you'll see, sorry, I'm just gonna show you that again. You'll see that a little grid popped up on the object, on the little ghost. And you can, change the number of nodes that are on that, but we're gonna keep it at 4. That's not a problem. This is, I think, one of the most fun ways of using the perform mode. I just love this so much. And I hope you'll see why. So what we're going to do is we're going to simply grab one of these nodes, and I'm just going to zoom in by just increasing that a little bit. I'm going to grab one of these nodes and I'm going to add a little bit of breath, a little bit of life into my little ghost. And the way I'm going to do that is just by moving around this node. And you can see the time is ticking by here. And we're just going to continue giving a little bit of breath, a little bit of movement, something smooth. And there's something really meditative about this way of using the perform mode, which I really, really love. And we're going to stay until the end of our animation. So we've done that. If you pinch really quickly, you can zoom out. You can see your playhead is all the way at the end, but we're going to bring it back to the beginning. You can see the keyframes, the automatic keyframes have been added. You don't need to worry about that, but it's just good to know what those are. We're going to do it a second time. So I'm going to take a different node and add a little bit more life. And the cool thing is that you can see the first node that was animated, and you can try to see if you contrast the movement or if you move with it or against it. But we're just increasing this sense of movement and life in our little character. And I'm going to keep going until the end of the time. There we go.
We had
Awesome.
a quick question,
Yes.
which is, can you warp multiple nodes together?
Ooh, that's a good question. I actually am not sure. I've only ever used them separately, but the thing is that they're connected. So they do kind of, maybe I can just show you just with a third one because it doesn't matter. You can do as many as you want. If I choose one of these ones that are more in the middle, it moves more than just that thing. It's like a net. It's like a connected net. So everything kind of moves a little bit. But other than that, I'm not sure if, I don't know if you can select multiple nodes simultaneously. I will look that up and I'll report back at some point. Now I want to introduce you to a second way of animating, which is keyframe animation. And you've kind of seen that a little bit because of these automatic keyframes, but we're going to do it manually rather than have them do it automatically through this perform mode. So I want to make sure that I am out of the perform mode. I don't want that to be selected. I want to just be in this regular interface with nothing selected. I'm going to do it with my little ghost. And what I think would be really fun is to make my ghost appear out of nowhere. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my playhead all the way at the beginning. I'm going to tap it. This time I'm going to click on filter. And then I'm going to click on opacity. And you can see a new track was added with a new keyframe, which is an opacity keyframe. And I can see that it's 100%. So that one I want to put at 0. And then we're going to put another one here at 100. So you can see it now appearing out of nowhere. My little ghost appears. And that's also cool, is that when you zoom in, you can zoom in on a section of your animation rather than seeing the entire thing. And then if I just want to zoom out again, then I can just pinch in order to come back to the general view. All right, so what I want to do here is I want my ghost to, he's checking out this watering can, there's a watering can, and he's gonna come and pick it up, the watering can, and pour it out. So we're going to go back to the beginning of our animation, and we're going to again click the perform mode button, so the record. And this time we're going to do it more like that first thing that I showed you, where we're going to animate just the movement of the ghost. But I want you to stop at the moment that it arrives at the watering can. So that means to lift up your Apple Pencil as soon as we arrive at the watering can. So he's just going to be floating around just a little bit here and then coming down onto the watering can. So if you want to practice that motion before doing it, you can do that. And then once you're ready, I'm just going to be floating a little bit and then coming to the watering can. What we want to do is we want the ghost to end up pouring the watering can, and he's going to pick it up and pour it. But I'll tell you already, we're going to do the pouring first because it's easier to do that in that order. And that's something that's going to be fun to experiment with as you experiment with your animations, is the order in which you do things, and that there are ways in which you do it that make it easier down the line for you. So we're going to also use the perform mode, but in a slightly different way. What we're going to do is we're going to click on one of the corners, and you'll see there's this little gray arc that appears. I'm also going to click on the 3 dots at the top right and click on Edit Anchor. And this is the place, oh, sorry, I just realized I have forgotten one important element. This gives me the opportunity to talk to you about groups, because I don't want to, it's not just my ghost that's going to move. I want my ghost plus my watering can to move. And groups, the way that I like to think about it is that they're like boxes. So it's like you put your ghost in a box, and then you put the watering can in a box, and then you move the box around, and that allows you to move everything together. And that's what a group is. And you activate that by clicking on the little boxes on in the middle on the right. When you're in this mode, your Apple Pencil becomes kind of shiny, like a neon magic wand, and you can select the tracks that you want in your boxes or deselect them just by, writing on them or circling them, whichever works best for you. So once you have your ghost and your watering can selected, we're going to long hold on any one of the tracks, and we're going to click group. And so now here we have our nested box with our ghost and our watering can. I'm going to also highlight this one, and I'll just make it like orange, just for ease of use and to get into the habit of organizing things. So let's go back to where we were So our little ghost moves, he comes in to here, he comes in to grab the watering can. And this is when we're going to use the perform mode. It's very, whoop. Oh, that's why, okay. So I want to deselect the group, and I want to make sure that I'm placed at the right moment, about here, and I'm going to click record. But first I want to edit the anchor. So I'm going to click the little corner, then I'm going to click the three little dots, edit the anchor, and I'm going to bring the anchor down in the top third middle of my watering can, because that feels like it makes sense. And then I'll click done on the top right. All right, so one of these things with these motions is you want to think about what motion exactly do I do when I'm pouring a watering can. And this is also what I find really fun about this perform mode, is that it really allows you to kind of integrate your body and your body memories, and to think about movement, and to think about how that happens, and to bring that into your drawing, which is just, I don't know, I find it really, really fun. So maybe think a little bit about, okay, well, how would I pour? You know, I'm gonna have like a little bit of a movement. I'm gonna wait right at the end so the water can drop, and then I'm going to come back. All right, so once you're ready, and sometimes it'll take you multiple takes in order to do it right. It probably won't be perfect this time, and that's okay. It's really just for you to understand the principles of this. In order to rotate, you want to be placing your Apple Pencil on that little gray curve. If you go a little bit too far, then sometimes it'll think that you're scaling or moving. So you really need to be quite precise with how you touch it, with how you place your Apple Pencil on it. So let's just try it. I'm going to pour and then come back pretty much to straight. However, it's not exactly straight. So what do? I can come in here, zoom in, and I find the last frame that I had, the last keyframe that was placed. If I click on it, I can see the amount of the rotation. I'm going to go ahead and click that and put 0, because I want to be back to my perfect vertical initial position. And so that makes sure that my ghost and my watering can are in the right position.
Quick question, Marie-Noëlle.
Yes.
Somebody asked, if you are not satisfied with like the movements that you performed, is it possible to erase all the keyframes instead of deleting them one by one, so you can just like quickly restart and try to repeat the movement again?
What I would do is I would use my 2 fingers and tap, and that'll just allow you to completely just erase the movement itself that you just did. And that's the easiest way to really very quickly do retakes of the same perform movement. I hope that answered the question. So we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to get a second shot at this. And I want us to start at 11 seconds. So bring your playhead at like maybe 11 and a half. We're going to again click the corner, and then we're going to pour. You see, so there I just did it. I wasn't placed well enough on the arc. So I'm going to double tap, and I'm going to try again. And I'm okay. I'm going to come and change the last keyframe like I did. And now I want us to zoom out again. And you can actually no, you can zoom in and just check your movement. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with mine. It could be better, but you know, I'm reasonably happy with it. And we're going to come back to this moment when the ghost lands on the watering can. So what I'm going to want to do, so it's around 6 seconds, six and some, he's going to pick up the watering can, kind of float around until the moment where he pours, which is at 11 seconds. After he pours, he's just going to come back over here in this area and kind of just float around a bit. So that's the movement that we're going to be doing now. So I'm going to click on the perform mode, and we're picking up the little ghost, and I want him to start pouring. And then once he's done, comes back and floats and hangs out all the way to the end.
This looks amazing. Lots of
Cool.
lots of love in the chat for how cool this is.
Awesome. I'm glad.
Um, just quick time check as we're almost at the top of the hour.
Yeah.
Don't want to make sure we save some time for questions. So yeah, just wanted to check in to see how you're doing and how many more things you want to go through.
Yeah, I do have a few more. I don't know, maybe about 5 minutes. Would that work?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. So we want to, of course, add in the water that's going to be dripping out of the watering can. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the moment where, kind of in between the moment where he starts pouring and then the moment where it finishes pouring. We want to just go a little bit earlier, and we're going to draw in this section. And we're going to drag up into flipbook mode, because now we're going to do the third type of animation process, which is frame by frame hand-drawn animation, which is very fun. So I'm going to choose blue as my color, maybe something like this blue. And we are going to click on this little bottom left timestamp, and we're going to make sure that we have onion skins activated. So you want to click show onion skin, and you can edit the onion skins, and this is just the frames that go before and after each frame that you make. I like to keep my opacity, not at 100%, but I still want to be able to see it. So, we can just leave it at 2-3 frames. That's all good. And we're going to zoom in and just have a tiny little dot. Oop, I'm going to reduce my brush size first. Little dot of water that's coming out. And then maybe it gets bigger. Oh yeah. And so you can see here, what I did is I did my drawing on this one, and then I went to the next frame on my little flip book so that I could add my new drawing. So I'm going to do that again. And you can also simply, if you tap on it, you can add a plus over there as well. So I'm going to make this one a little bigger. And then it's maybe going to start stretching. But even as it stretches, I want to keep it kind of the same volume as the initial big drop. And then there's the moment of disconnect where it squashes. And obviously it's not perfect, but you just want to keep eyeball it kind of. And then as it falls, I'm going to keep it a little bit closer on this first one, and it's going to stretch again. And then as it hits the ground, I want it to squash a little bit again. And then make a little puddle. with a little drop that comes up and two that come to the sides. And then my little line is going to continue. These ones are going to hit the ground maybe, and then this one comes back. And my little blue line becomes thinner and smaller and smaller, and it disappears. Now I want to click done. We're going to add just one little more element if we have the time. And so I'm going to ask you to add a track. And this one, I want us to go back to where you can kind of see the drip that you just made. I want you to draw, and we're going to, and it doesn't really matter here because this is something that you're going to erase, but it's just like a visual marker for where you're at. And this is another time-saving thing that you'll do if you're making animations down the line. And I'm going to long hold on that, click fill duration, okay? And this is just going to help me for afterwards. So if I zoom out and I look at what I'm doing here, if I use 3 fingers, then I can shorten the timeline, by the way. So I want to come to this moment. So he's poured his water and then comes back and just is watching. So about 21 seconds. Then I'm going to come back and draw again on this track. And I'm going to use blue, but you can use green. We're going to make a little flower that pops up. So we're going to zoom in, and the first one is just going to be one little dot that you won't even see because it'll be underneath your marker. And then maybe one leaf and a tiny little leaf next to it. And then that'll be bigger and bigger. And one really big one, a second really big one. And this time we're going to add the stalk. Oh, I'm actually going to go back to the previous frame and add a tiny bit of a stalk. I forgot that. And then I'm going to add a little bud. With a tiny flower. Maybe I'll do the same color as my ghost, but you can make it like neon pink or something like that. And make it even bigger on this last one. All right. One final step left. So I'm going to click on done, and then I'm going to click on this last frame, fill duration. I'm going to also go back to that little marker that I made, and I'm just going to long hold that and delete content so that I no longer need that anymore. I'm going to hit groups, and I'm going to group my entire blue little flower together by long holding and hitting group. I'm then going to long hold this again and click duplicate. And I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to see that there's a duplication of my little flower here. And there might be some track that got added, or you might have room on some track underneath like I do or above. And so we're just going to add it down there. And I'm going to do it one more time, duplicating. And then I'll put this on my third one over here. All right. we should be all set. So if you zoom out, you bring your playhead to the beginning. Oh, I didn't mention that actually, but you can also play by shoving your playhead, like by just like throwing it to the left. That's another way of doing that, and it'll start playing. But let's do it in the right mode, which would be well, not the right mode, the biggest mode. And you use 4 of your fingers in order to do that. So we're going to tap 4 fingers, and then we're going to hit play on our animation. Oh, I just realized I forgot to move the little flower, but so this is where you can check. So we had made 3 little flowers, but I forgot to show you how to move them. So we're going to do that. The second one, I'm going to untap the group thing so I can tap on the second flower. And the way that I like to make it appear is I'll use the perform mode just to make the bounding box kind of appear, and then I'll deactivate it, and then I see the bounding box. So now that I have it, I can actually just tap here, and that would probably be the easiest. I've just gotten into the habit of doing that kind of every time, but it's not the most time efficient. So if you just tap, it will appear. And I can move my little flower, and I can also scale it. And because I'm not in, sorry, I'm struggling to do that here. I need to zoom in. Because I'm not in perform mode, it's not going to, I don't know why it's not working right now. Oh, I know why, because my anchor isn't in the right place. So where is the anchor? The anchor is all the way up here. I'm going to bring it all the way down here, and that's going to allow me to scale it. So I click done, and then now I can scale my little flower. And I'm just going to make it, kind of there. I'm going to do the same thing with the other one, the third one. So I'm going to move it out of the way, and I'm going to also make it a little smaller. So I'm going to edit the anchor, take it from the middle here, bring it back into my flower, click done, zoom in, and then scale this just so it's a little smaller. There we go. All right, so now we should be actually completely set, and we're going to start over and see our full animation in action. So there's our little ghost with his 3 little happy flowers.
Looks amazing. You're getting lots of positive comments in the chat. Super cute, super
Awesome.
sweet. People love it.
And you could also
Amazing.
have fun, like, so I've done other iterations that we don't have the time to get into, but where the ghost just like puts his watering can down and then he floats away on some new adventure. Yeah,
Amazing
I,
notes
I did
here.
want to just show people that it's totally possible to create an animation from scratch in the app. It's a really, really fun way of understanding how it works, and it doesn't need to be complicated. And that's, I think, also something else that, I think animation kind of scares a lot of people, but that's what I love about this app is it's not scary. Once you understand, once the way that all the little elements work, where they are, you can really just have fun playing with your creativity, your ideas. You might see something in your day that you find kind of cute or kind of surprising, and then you can try and experiment with it in the animation app. And so I also hope, from what I was talking about in the beginning, is that you really start to understand or start to experience that drawing and animation are just windows into you connecting with the outside world and with yourself simultaneously, and how can you bring those together in ways that are exciting and fun for you?
One question was, if you wanted to animate the sun with spirals, how could you animate the
Ooh.
nodes at the edge? I don't know if you have a thought on that.
If I wanted to animate the sun, I would probably use the rotate animation because I think that, like, especially if you have a sun that's like a spiral, then if you use the rotate, then you'll have the rotation of those spirals going on. So that's, I don't know, that would be my first way of thinking of it. For sure, with the warp nodes, it's really more of that kind of like breathing effect. Um, but I could still see you like maybe pulling some of the swirls in one direction. So that could be really fun to experiment with. Actually, I'm very curious and would love to see what comes from your experiments on that note.
Yeah, so it sounds like experiment with rotate. You could also experiment with
Yeah.
nodes, but rotate might be easier. And then someone else
Mhm.
recommended trying to group a glowy track and then perform the opacity on the glowy track.
Ooh,
So
that
I
sounds
guess like a
very fun
layer,
too.
which sounds
Yeah.
cool. So lot get try to experiment a bunch, but it sounds like there's a few different ways to approach it. Then I have a more general question, which is
Mhm.
have you tried combining your analog art with dynamic animations in Procreate Dreams? Or do you intend to, and how might that look?
Yeah, I've wanted to. I have not really yet, but it's on my kind of like bucket list of things that I want to experiment with. I've often had more a tendency to work with analog media or with just Procreate and then bringing in my illustration from Procreate into Procreate Dreams and then animating that. But I've definitely been itching to try more of those analog and digital mixes. There have been a few times for several commissions, including like a Skillshare commission that I did, I don't know, 2 years ago, where I did do both. I did first an analog thing, then I brought it into Procreate. So I could definitely see myself exploring that, and I'm sure that that would be really fun. So,
Yeah, that would be super cool. Well, for everyone here, you can stay tuned on, actually, I'll share my screen now. Um, You can stay tuned with Marie-Noëlle Wurm's art on Instagram. So highly recommend checking that out if you do want to see some of her progress in maybe integrating the analog world with Procreate Dreams. Also, we'd love to see what you create in the app. Skillshare loves to repost what people in the community are creating, and I'm sure Marie-Noëlle would love to
yeah,
see. Yeah.
I would love to see what you guys made from this session. So if you want to share and you want to tag me, that'd be awesome to see what it is that you made and how you personalized it, because I think that's also really important and really fun.
Yeah,
So
yeah, would love to see what you create. So yeah, definitely share with us as you are ready to. And then another fun and exciting offering we have is that Marie-Noëlle is offering one-on-one sessions on Procreate Dreams tips and techniques. So if you're someone who wants to have a little bit more of that kind of hands-on support, mentorship, coaching, work through an actual project you want to work on together with someone, Marie-Noëlle is offering that. So there's a QR code there that you can take if you're interested in checking that out.
I love my one-on-one sessions. So if you want to join, it would be a true honor because I just think it's really fascinating to get into what what your specific issues are or ways in which we can help you reconnect or connect more with your creativity. So in these Procreate Dream specific sessions, I was also thinking about this notion of style and of connecting more deeply with your creativity and yourself, and how can you bring more of you into the stuff that you create. So I'm going to be doing a class about Procreate Dreams, and I'm going to be able to kind of delve a little bit deeper into some of the techniques, a lot of these little quick shortcuts and tips that'll help make your workflow a little smoother, um, and hopefully do a lot of creative exercises as well.
And I think with that, would love to just give you a round of applause, Marie-Noëlle, and a
Thank
round of
you.
applause to everyone out there for joining and sticking with us and creating. I see all the fun emojis popping up. Thank you for the love. And we wish you, yeah, beautiful rest of your day. Hope you keep on creating and hope to see you at the next Skillshare live session. And thank you so much, Marie-Noëlle.
Thank you so much to everyone for joining. It was so fun.